One of the most important skills that a person can develop over the course of their lives is the skill of communication, collaboration, and socializing with other people. I think this is a really important skill to have because if you kind of just zoom out and look at life from a broader perspective, pretty much every aspect of life requires some level of communication. Whether that's communicating with your coworkers at work, communicating with your siblings or with your family, or with your friends in general, or even, when you go outside and go to a store, go to a restaurant, or go to the grocery store, you always have to communicate with other people and talk to them and, kind of just get to know what everybody else is up to. Or if you have to go to the gas station and fill up some gas, sometimes you have to talk to the gas station attendant. So I think communication overall is a really good skill to have. And more specifically, what I mean by communication is not just, being able to talk clearly and kind of convey your thoughts to the other person and just communicate back and forth. What I specifically mean is the ability to translate your thoughts into a coherent message that comes out of your mouth in a concise way that other people can actually understand. Because for me personally, I feel like inside of my brain, I have so many thoughts in a typical day, like thousands and hundreds of thoughts. And if I were to just say those thoughts out loud out of my mouth without thinking about anything in particular, then my voice, the stuff that would come out outside of my mouth would not really make any sense because I have to actually organize my thoughts and kind of make a sentence in my mind beforehand before I actually speak it. Because if I don't do that, then what tends to happen is a bunch of like random words and like ums and pauses and like ifs and ands come out. And sometimes the other person that I'm talking to, they'll look at me and they'll say, "Oh, could you repeat that? Or could you say that again? I didn't understand you the first time." And so growing up, that kind of really bothered me, the fact that people kind of never like understood what I was talking about. Well, they understood what I was talking about, but sometimes I would have to repeat myself. And I feel like the better you can talk and the less that you have to repeat yourself, the better it is going to be for your life in general going forward. Um, and yeah, every aspect of life revolves around communication. And I feel like if we don't have this skill, life becomes like really hard. It becomes, tenfold as hard as it would be. Um, it just becomes really hard. It just becomes everything becomes difficult because communication is a big part of life. We're social creatures. Humans are, people that have been socializing since the beginning of language, since the beginning of time. And I want to talk about something that's related to communication and my job right now in corporate. I always see people in my office job who talk about doing a certain designation or doing like some sort of CPA or CFA. For those that don't know, a CPA is basically like a really high up certificate or designation that accountants get just so that they can level up in their career. And the CPA is, I think, something that I think it actually is required to be an accountant. So I think that's something that you actually do need. But there's this other certification called the CFA, which stands for Chartered Financial Analyst or Certified Financial Analyst, either one of the two. But basically, what that is around a 3 to 5 year course that consists of three different levels, so three different exams, and you basically have to study for 300 hours for each level. So overall, it'll be around 900 to 1,000 hours of studying over the course of 3 to 5 years or however long it takes you to finish those three exams. And at the end of the three levels, you're supposed to become this super like financial whiz and finance expert, and you're supposed to basically like know everything about all the financial markets and what goes on in equities and what goes on in interest rates and mortgages and everything like that. Um, and that's a really good designation and course to finish and to have that on your resume. Um, and then, I think you get the letters CFA behind your name if you finish it. So it's pretty impressive. But the one issue that I find with the CFA is the fact that 50% of the people that I've heard who said they're going to be doing their CFA are a little bit socially awkward, and they don't really tend to talk a whole lot. Like, I've seen a lot of these people, usually they're guys, and um, I'll sometimes talk to them, in the corporate environment, and they're super shy, and they're like, they don't talk to anybody. And if you do try to talk to them, sometimes it just feels like they're not able to get the proper words out, or they're not able to talk properly to you. And so, it's like, if you're a shy person like that, and yeah, getting the CFA will help you progress in your career and your, whatever decision that you want to do in your life in terms of your career. But like I said in the beginning of this video, communication, collaboration, and socializing with other people, with other like actual human beings, I think is a way more important skill to have than having some designation, whether that's CFA, CPA, whatever it is. Because although, those courses can take you really far in terms of your career and make you learn many things that you maybe wouldn't have learned if you didn't have that designation, if you don't have the ability, the strong communication ability and socialization skills, then in my opinion, I still think that you won't go far in life because, like I said again, like I got my corporate job because I knew my previous senior manager when I was an intern, and so we kept in touch. We would talk occasionally every few months. Um, so because I made that social connection with my manager, and the fact that she remembered me after a couple of years after I left the internship, you know that required communication, and I wouldn't have had that connection with my manager, if we didn't talk a whole lot. She probably would have forgotten about me because she gets like a couple interns every year. So, it's she would have forgotten about me, but because I talked to her a lot, and because I was not shy, um, she decided to call me back and proceeded to tell me that a person on their team had left the company. And so because of that, they asked me to come back to the company and replace that full-time analyst. So basically, I took that other analyst position because that analyst had left the company. So I got a job pretty easily, right? And I was able to increase my salary from my internship to a full-time analyst role by quite a bit. And if I had just focused on doing a CFA, I highly doubt that I would have gotten that opportunity to go back into this company in corporate. So, so yeah, the main idea of this video is just to um, realize that having good communication skills is way more important than any designation or certification that you can do. That's it for the video. Peace out.